Joburg residents can look forward to some relief in the near future as the city embarks on plans to address the energy crisis. The City of Johannesburg's MMC for Environment and Infrastructure Services, Jack Sekwaila, says they have procured 92 megawatts of power from 4 independent power producers. Well, let's speak to energy expert Lungile Mashele. Lungile, appreciate your time this evening. Should the residents of Johannesburg be jumping up and down?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Every little bit counts, ultimately. So 92 megawatts, if you compare to what Gauteng usually demands in, let's say, winter, June, about 10,500 megawatts for the evening peak, might seem very, very small, but these 92 megawatts add up eventually, and they do get us over the line to a point where we can reduce load shedding marginally. You'll recall that in Cape Town, for instance, they've got Stembras, which is only about 180 megawatts. Yes, their demand is a lot lower than Gauteng, but it certainly does alleviate one stage of load shedding there. So let's encourage more IPPs coming on board and offering more solutions.
So talk to us about the process of licensing these IPPs or contracting these IPPs to provide power to the City of Johannesburg.
So there are numerous methods. There's obviously the REAP process. This obviously did not follow a REAP process. You are sitting here with the city that then goes out onto RFP processes and then procures the power that they require. It comes in various forms, various sizes, and allocations, and in this case they then were able to secure from these 4 IPPs. So it's not a simple process. Also, a lot of money is required from the IPPs upfront, development funding that they have to self-fund, looking at the site, where it's going to be allocated. You also need to do your resource measurement assessments prior to, but a very key thing is obviously then registering these with the regulator and making sure that the prices are competitive and you do not exceed the budgets that you do have in place.
How much do we know about these 4 IPPs?
Absolutely nothing.
Well, I suppose the next question then is what is the expected timeline for the electricity from these IPPs to start feeding into the grid, assuming that they have the capacity to do so?
So if you're looking at capacity that is available, naturally it can be on the grid in the next couple of weeks to a couple of months, depending on their own readiness. If they are looking at greenfield projects and there are still studies that they need to complete and they still need to finalize their own funding and get to financial close, you're basically looking at anything between 18 to 24 months. Also, it depends on the technology that they're going to deploy. So it's not a solution that may be available immediately, depending on what they went with, eventually.
Well, one of the questions that will be on everybody's mind, apart from when will the power become available, is at what cost? At what cost to the consumer?
So that's the key thing, right? Typically, your IPPs do come in at a lot less lower than what Eskom is charging currently in terms of their megaflex tariff. So they are competitive. The real question becomes what ancillary services do they provide? Do they provide energy? Do they provide capacity? And also, was this procured in some kind of a speedy manner so that it alleviates some form of load shedding, and in which case you would have paid a premium for that as well. So the tariffs I am not familiar with, but those are all the factors that would go into tariff decision making. And then of course you then have to then table this with the National Energy Regulator and get all the permissions that are required as well. And they will do a reasonable test and a reasonable assessment of whether consumers can afford these tariffs.
Now, what are the initiatives the City Power implementing to address these power challenges? Because they've been numerous and they've been protracted, if you will, apart from waiting for the next 18 to 24 months. Are there any other initiatives being carried out?
So I am aware of they are looking at energy efficiency and demand side management initiatives. They have been through the national rollout of solar water heaters, perhaps linking into those programs. They are also looking at various government buildings and reducing their energy consumption. They are also, through the national government, also latching onto, people being able to install their own solar on their own rooftops and then claim back from SARS, and ultimately running this program and benefiting at a more local level where people might ultimately produce in excess of what they need and then be able to sell onto the grid or sell to the municipalities, therefore generating an income for themselves. So there are a myriad of things that they are looking at with different time frames and budgets also. So it's not just one thing, which is good because it also gives us playing room or rather that range of things that are available immediately and things that will only be available in, let's say, 24 months.
Now, the one exciting thing that City Power has been doing is that they've decided to collect what is outstanding or outstanding dues in the region of 5 billion rand. I suppose my first question would be, are they able to collect this much? And if so, and they're able to collect 5 billion, how will they use that money?
So you will recall that municipal services extend beyond electricity and they go towards provision of water. You need healthcare, ambulances, there's roads, there's lighting, there's so many things that they have to do over and above their own overhead salaries, buildings. And all of that needs a provision of an adequate budget. And you would typically find that the budgeting process that they have in place is very adequate. However, the collections are where they lack. And if you look at Eskom, for instance, as a utility, and the top, let's say the top 10 people that actually owe them are municipalities. And that is often spoken about, how municipalities will bankrupt Eskom. But what is not often spoken about is how people, residents, are not paying municipalities. We've seen various initiatives from City of Joburg, even City of Tshwane, going out and making sure that they collect revenue. And at times, and we've seen, like in recent weeks, at times it is public, it is about naming and shaming, it is about embarrassing people, it's about arresting people also, but it's also about making sure that there are legal consequences for people that reconnect themselves illegally or that do things that they're not supposed to do. So in terms of collections, yes, there is the more normal method of sending out emails, SMSs, threatening people, having tracers, go out, people say you have to pay, but then they also have been conducting door-to-door campaigns, especially for the larger defaulters and collecting that money. And, contrary to popular belief, it's not just poor people who are not able to afford and to pay. It's large customers. It's people who live in golf estates. It is people who are, like in embassies, government buildings. Those are the top defaulters that are actually not paying municipalities.
Lungile Mashele, appreciate your time.